Welcome to this 10-minute training on HACCP Principles. In today's session, we'll walk through what HACCP is, why it matters, and how each of the 7 principles helps us prevent food safety hazards before they reach the consumer. Let's get started. HACCP stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points. It's a preventive, science-based system designed to identify and control food safety hazards before they cause harm. HACCP is required by regulatory bodies and GFSI programs, and it's one of the most important tools we use to protect consumers, maintain compliance, and safeguard our brand. The key idea behind HACCP is simple: prevent problems before they happen. Don't wait to detect them at the end. In HACCP, we focus on 3 main types of hazards. Biological hazards, such as bacteria, viruses, and parasites. Chemical hazards, including allergens, cleaning chemicals, and lubricants. And physical hazards, like metal, glass, or plastic. Our job is to identify where these hazards could enter the process and put controls in place to prevent them. Before HACCP can work, strong prerequisite programs, or GMPs, must be in place. These include sanitation, personnel hygiene, pest control, calibration, supplier approval, allergen management, preventive maintenance, and employee training. Think of these programs as the foundation. If the foundation is weak, the HACCP plan cannot function effectively. Conducting a hazard analysis. We start by mapping the entire process flow, from receiving to shipping. At each step, we identify potential biological, chemical, and physical hazards. Then we assess each hazard for severity and likelihood. This helps us determine which hazards require control and which steps in the process are most critical. For example, receiving raw chicken presents a biological hazard such as salmonella. This hazard must be controlled later in the process, typically through cooking. Once hazards are identified, we determine which steps are critical control points, or CCPs. A CCP is a step where control is essential to prevent or eliminate a hazard. Common CCPs include cooking, metal detection, thermal processing, and chemical concentration and sanitation. We use a CCP decision tree to help determine whether a step qualifies as a CCP. If failure at that step could result in unsafe food, it's likely a CCP. Critical limits are the measurable values that must be met at each CCP. These limits are based on scientific validation, not guesswork. Examples include cooking to at least 74 degrees Celsius, metal detector sensitivity such as 2 mm ferrous, or maintaining a product pH of 4.2 or lower. If a critical limit is not met, the CCP is considered out of control. Monitoring is how we ensure each CCP stays within its critical limit. Monitoring must be measurable, documented, and performed by trained personnel at the correct frequency. Examples include checking cooking temperatures every batch, or verifying the metal detector every 2 hours. Monitoring records are essential. They prove that the process was under control. When a CCP goes out of control, corrective actions must be taken immediately. Corrective actions include isolating affected product, determining its disposition, correcting the cause of the deviation, and documenting everything. The goal is to prevent unsafe product from reaching the consumer and to ensure the issue does not happen again. Verification activities confirm that the HACCP system is working as intended. These activities include internal audits, calibration, review of monitoring records, and sometimes micro-testing. Verification is different from monitoring. Monitoring checks the CCP in real time, while verification checks the overall system. Record keeping is the backbone of HACCP. Records provide evidence that hazards were controlled, CCPs were monitored, and corrective actions were taken when needed. Good records must be accurate, legible, complete, and retained according to company policy and regulatory requirements. Everyone plays a role in HACCP. Operators monitor CCPs and report deviations. Supervisors verify records and ensure corrective actions are completed. The FSQA team maintains the HACCP plan, conducts hazard analysis, trains employees, and leads verification activities. Food safety is truly a shared responsibility. Let's pause for a quick knowledge check. What is a CCP? Can you name one example of a critical limit? And what should you do if a CCP is out of control? These questions help reinforce the key concepts we've covered. Now let's look at a real-world scenario. A line operator notices that the metal detector rejects 3 consecutive units of finished product. The reject bin shows no visible contamination, but the detector continues rejecting product. The last verification was done 1 hour ago, and the line is running at full speed. What should happen next? First, the operator must stop the line and notify QA immediately. All product produced since the last good check must be isolated and evaluated. The metal detector must be re-verified before production can restart. And finally, all actions must be fully documented. This scenario highlights why CCP monitoring and quick response are so important. To wrap up, remember these key points. HACCP prevents hazards before they reach the consumer. CCPs must always be monitored. Deviations require immediate corrective action. And documentation is essential for proving control. Strong HACCP systems protect both consumers and the business. Before the final wrap-up, let's review some of the questions an auditor may ask during a HACCP or GFSI audit. These questions help confirm that employees understand their process, their CCPs, and their role in maintaining food safety. First, auditors may ask general HACCP questions, such as, what does HACCP stand for, and why do we use it? They may also ask you to explain the types of hazards we control in our facility. Next, auditors often check your process knowledge. They may ask you to walk them through the process flow in your area, identify where hazards could occur, and explain how those hazards are controlled. For CCP operators, auditors will ask very specific questions. They may ask, what is the CCP in your area? What is the critical limit? How do you monitor it, and how often? And what tools or equipment do you use for monitoring? Auditors will also ask about deviations and corrective actions. They want to know what you would do if the CCP goes out of control, who you notify, what happens to the affected product, and how corrective actions are documented. Record keeping is another key area. You may be asked to show your monitoring records, explain how you ensure accuracy, and describe what you do if you make a mistake on a record. Auditors may also ask about verification and validation. For example, how do you know your CCP equipment is working correctly? When was the last calibration or verification performed? And who is responsible for these activities? Finally, auditors often ask about prerequisite programs and your personal responsibility. They may ask which GMPs support the HACCP plan, what training you've received, and how your role helps prevent food safety hazards. Being prepared for these questions helps ensure a smooth audit and demonstrates a strong food safety culture. That brings us to the end of today's HACCP Principles session. We covered the core concepts that form the foundation of every food safety system, from hazard analysis to CCPs, critical limits, monitoring, corrective actions, verification, and record keeping. These principles are not just requirements, they are the tools that protect our products, our consumers, and our reputation. Remember, HACCP is only effective when each of us understands our role and applies these principles consistently. Your attention to detail, your accuracy, and your commitment to doing things the right way make a real difference in maintaining a strong food safety culture. We'll continue building on these concepts next week as we move deeper into HACCP, GMP, SQF principles and applications. Until then, stay safe, stay compliant, and I'll see you next week.